And Brandon, now we are moving into the top 4 of the division, the big teams. These are the teams of why I call this the Big Ten Beast and not just the Big Ten East. We are looking at the Michigan Wolverines. And Brandon, I will say, Jim Harbaugh would not be happy with me today. He would not be a happy camper with me.
You're not wearing khakis.
No, it's not because I'm not wearing khakis. It's because before the podcast, I had chicken.
Oh,
and you know how,
no.
You know how Jim Harbaugh says you shouldn't eat chicken because it's a nervous bird, and if you eat the chicken, you will gain the nervous qualities of the chicken, and you'll just be nervous. That's why this whole podcast, if you notice, I've probably been a little bit more nervous than usual. It's because I ate that chicken beforehand, and I've gained those bad qualities from the chicken. So I'm sorry, Coach Harbaugh. I will try to do better and eat my beef like I usually do with my hamburgers instead of my chicken nuggets. But we're talking about the Michigan Wolverines, and Jim Harbaugh is the guy I want to ask you about first, B, because he's a guy that has gone 10-3, 10-3, and 8-5 in his 3 seasons at Michigan. 6 wins, 7 wins, 5 wins in the conference. However, everybody and their grandmother is saying, it doesn't matter, you haven't beaten Ohio State. So I want to ask you this question, kind of go a little bit overreaction from the top of this one, is will this be the beginning of him? Basically, I'll ask you this. Should Jim Harbaugh be on the hot seat this season, or will this be the beginning and next year he will officially be on the hot seat?
Let me give you a little bit of a roundabout answer, but then come to the answer. 2015, you lost to Michigan State, and you lost to Ohio State.
Yes.
2016, you lost to Ohio State. In a very controversial game at the end. Everyone has talked about it. It is still a loss.
Yeah,
and
I think they should have won that game.
And in 2017, you lose to Michigan State, you lose to Wisconsin, to Penn State, and to Ohio State. Wrapping back to the answer to the question, Jim Harbaugh, if he cannot, again, it's great that you're able to go 10-3, 10-3, and then 8-5 is your down year. If 8-5 is your down year, you look at that and you go, okay, not a bad down year, still a down year by your standards, but that you've set there at the university. But if he cannot, and it's not just beat Ohio State, if he cannot win the big games, including Ohio State, he's firmly on the hot seat. Firmly on the hot seat. No question about it.
Especially if you can't beat, like, depending on what happens to Urban Meyer, I know that, I mean, today, and we'll get into that a little bit in the Ohio State preview, but we had David Pollack from ESPN go on Dan Patrick and say he thinks that it'll only be a 2-game suspension for Urban Meyer. You had Pat Ford on Friday on the Dan Patrick show say that he does not think that Urban Meyer will get fired. If Urban does get fired, though, if you still can't beat Ohio State, then you have problems for Jim Harbaugh. The big thing, though, that has many, 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 many Wolverines kind of dancing and being like, yes, this could be the year that we finally beat the Buckeyes with Jim Harbaugh, is a quarterback that we have talked about in the past. I believe we did a segment on it when he did transfer to Michigan, and that is Ole Miss quarterback, or former Ole Miss quarterback, Shea Patterson, is now going to be the guy for the Wolverines. He was granted immediate eligibility by the NCAA in April. He is a guy who you look at, if you put him on this team last year, he had better stats than basically everyone at Michigan a year ago, who he had over 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns. Yes, there's optimism with his arrival in Ann Arbor. How big of a boost is he going to be for this team, B?
Big one. Huge. A
huge boost. A huge boost.
He is, though. I mean, he's going to be an incredible bright spot for an offense that's been bleak. It's been bleak. And I think everyone knows it. Michigan fans admit to it, that it's been the defense. It's been the defense that's really helped and guided this team along since Harbaugh got there. And
however, they're going to be missing friend of the show, Mo Hurst.
They are.
They're going to be missing him. He's in the NFL now.
They are. But a defense under Jim Harbaugh is usually something that you do not have to worry about. But this offense is something that people have worried about. And last year, people certainly worried about it, and there was finally a microscope on the offense, and you look through the microscope, and it wasn't too good. I don't know why I held this up like it was a magnifying glass, and then tried to look at it through like I don't know what I was doing.
It's okay.
I'm not a science guy, but certainly Shea Patterson's going to lift up an offense that has some parts. Like you look at a couple of receivers, they've got some guys there. They've got Higdon on the in the running game, and I think that's going to be something that's positive. But you need a leader. You need a guy who's going to be able to get you there and effectively hand the ball off to you and be calling the right plays and be just the right guy for the spot. And Shea Patterson, while yes, he has seen injuries, which would be the only concern that I would have, he's a guy who's a good quarterback and someone who shouldn't have any trouble leading this Michigan offense. The point of concern would be an offensive line that may have holes in it.
And I mean, I look at it, in this team this year, really the biggest thing that Michigan fans, and I've been on record saying the same thing, is this team has been one of the best defensive teams the last 2 years. And their talent has been wasted with how bad the offense has been. And the thing at the very least that Shea Patterson coming to this team, to me, gives this team is basically, it gives them hope that maybe this could be the year that defense is not wasted, because they're going to need it, to be honest. Like, not only do you get the other three teams that are going to be at the top of the Big Ten beast along with you, but you get Northwestern, you get Wisconsin, you get two of the top three teams in the other side of the division. However, I look at this Michigan team, and I think that this could, you might call me crazy, but I think that with Shea Patterson, this could be the year that they finally turn it around. Because you look at last year, the only teams they lost to, and I know that Indiana was a close one and almost beat them. They have some of those games. I know that Florida, it was a 33-17 game. I get that, but I look at it, and it was Michigan State, who was a 4-point loss, Penn State, which was a bigger loss, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. And I look at what this team has this year compared to some of those other teams, like Northwestern. The biggest question for them, their quarterback health. Is Thorson going to be healthy by that time? If he is, how into the zone is he with Northwestern? Also, what kind of a team is Northwestern going to be overall? You look at Wisconsin. We've talked about them last week, that yes, we expect them to be at the top of their division, but now that, Michigan has a better quarterback, do they kind of become even with them and can get the win there? To me, the two biggest questions on the schedule are, can you beat Penn State and can you beat Ohio State? Because, yeah, Penn State, and we're going to look at them later. Yeah, they lost Saquon Barkley. They're still going to be a really good team. Ohio State, yeah, they lost some guys from last year, but Urban Meyer teams, they just reload every year. And I think if you are Jim Harbaugh this year, the most important game, and I know it's like this every year, so Michigan fans, you don't have to tell me but it's like that every year, but this year more than some. I don't care if you win one game all year, you better win that Buckeye game. You better go into the horseshoe and win that game, because that's the thing I think sticking with Michigan fans the most is not just our defense has been wasted thing, but also you better beat the Ohio State Buckeyes, because I know Michigan and Ohio State fans are going to get this, but you just give kind of a concept to someone who's not a Michigan or not an Ohio State fan. When I was in high school, my geometry teacher was a huge Michigan fan. And he told us a story that, back when you'd be in school at Michigan, at Ohio State, someone who goes to Michigan can tell me if it's still like this. They used to tell the students, hey, you know what? The game this week at Ohio State if you're going to the game, don't wear blue. I know you're going to want to wear blue because you want to support the team. Don't wear blue. And the reason why they would tell them that is because if you wore blue and went to the game, there's a chance that someone was going to beat you up because that's how much the two fan bases hated each other. Like, that is what this rivalry means down at the core. Now, I'm not saying that every single time fans get in fights and they beat each other up. They might. I don't know. I've never been to a Michigan-Ohio State game. I've never been a fan of either one of those teams. So luckily, I'm not going to get beat up. I'm going to wear an Illinois Fighting Illini shirt. They're going to look at me and go, oh, and then look back and kind of fight with each other. But that, to me, is the most important win on the schedule. Can they win a lot more? Yeah. But that, to me, is the most important game for Michigan. You got to win that game if you're Jim Harbaugh. Rant over. Soapbox done.
And I look at it, Ricky, and I don't know if they'll be able to do it. We're going to see potentially a game like the overtime game that we saw 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what we could get.
Except hopefully this time they're not screwed by the refs.
That aside,
whatever.
I think we're going to see a game like that. Mm-hmm. We're going to see a game like that.
I'm not even a Michigan fan, and that game pissed me off. And
you're looking at two teams with two good defenses, and you're going to have to look at it and go, what offense is going to be able to put them over the top? Mm-hmm. What offense is going to put them over the top? Is Shea Patterson putting Michigan over the top? No more JT Barrett. What do they do there? But it's still the Ohio State. They'll find a way. But then you have to look at it and say it's Michigan. It's Harbaugh. The last season is in the past. They'll bounce back. They'll find a way. That's exactly why we will see a game like we saw 2 years ago.
That is why, to me, of course, like, the most interesting thing you just said was Ohio State finds a way. They're going to need to find a way for this quarterback situation at Ohio State because I have a weird feeling, and we're going to get into the other half of this with Penn State later, but I feel like because Ohio State is losing JT Barrett this year, that this is the prime time for either a Michigan or a Penn State to jump on it, to say, you know what, we are going to take the Big Ten East. And I know Michigan State fans are going to say, don't forget about us, but really, when you look at the rosters, I expect more out of Penn State and Michigan, and I feel like this season is going to be much like last season. It's going to come down to 4 freaking games. It's going to come down to October 13th at home against Wisconsin, October 20th at East Lansing, November 3rd in Ann Arbor against Penn State, and November 24th, Thanksgiving weekend, at the Horseshoe. Those are the 4 games it's going to come down to. And I know South Bend is getting its panties in a jumble. Like, hey, what about us? Prove it. That's what I would say to them. Prove it that I should say, ooh, Michigan should be scared of you, because I think Michigan can walk into South Bend and get the win against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. But I just look at it and I go, are they going to go 0-4 in those Big Ten games again? Are they going to go 2-2 and just lose to Penn State and Ohio State? Or is this finally going to be the year? Because part of me wants to believe it will be, that this Michigan team goes undefeated the whole year, and we're finally talking about them as a undefeated playoff team for 2018-2019.
Oh, well, they're going to be. You would like to think that they're going to be better than what they were last season. 8-5. You would like to think that they could get back to their 10-3 mark. And they can. But like you said, you look at the rest of the teams that they've got to go through, and of course the teams that we're looking at are the Michigan States, the Penn States, and the Ohio States. That's who we're That's who we're looking at. Go ahead.
And the one thing I'll throw in there is most likely if they're going to go to the playoff, they'll have to beat Wisconsin maybe twice. Because most likely they'll play Wisconsin again in the Big Ten title game. Depending on how that race goes down. Otherwise, it's a Northwestern or a Purdue in the Big Ten title game in order to make the playoff.
So we already know about Ohio State. We already know that Ohio State's going to be Ohio State. Yeah. Whether there's an Urban Meyer, there's no Urban Meyer, they're going to be Ohio State. Penn State, I like Penn State a lot. I think, yes, you lose Saquon Barkley. You still have Trace McSorley. You still have a number of receivers and weapons for him to be able to throw to. Watch out for Penn State. And then Michigan State, this is a team that went 3-9 2 years ago. They flip that back. They go, 9-3 last year? This is a team that is continuing to be hungry. I think they return and we'll get into them, but they return close to 20 starters. Whoa. So this is not easy. This is not easy. And, of course, that's why you call them the Beast, and that's why this is going to be one of the strongest conferences in all of college football this season, because you're going to look at this and say you have 4 legitimate teams who could vie for the top spot.
Well, and that's why the thing I think of is whenever I listen to the Herd talk about college football, he kind of mentions how everyone thinks that, college football is the SEC. No, college football is the Big Ten, because his whole debate is you've got Alabama, who is kind of taking a stranglehold over the SEC. Yeah, there's Georgia and Auburn, who are also good as well. But you look at the rest of those teams, and it's all right, it's only 3 teams that are there. And 2 of them are in one division. They play each other. Whoever wins goes to that title game. And then it's basically been whoever wins the other division gets to lose to Alabama in that title game. Whereas the thing I love about this side of the Big Ten specifically is all 4 teams, and I know Michigan State took a dip for a little bit, but all these top 4 teams beat the hell out of each other each and every year. And then you throw a Wisconsin in there hey, don't forget about us on the other side, to where Michigan, I want to be optimistic about this team this year. I do. The defense is going to be better. It returns a ton of key pieces on a team that was a number 3 ranked defense last year. The biggest question is, what can the offense do? Shea Patterson helps. He's going to bring veteran leadership, and he's going to basically be, I'll say it, the best quarterback that Jim Harbaugh has had in his tenure at Michigan. Another question is, what about the young receivers? What about guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones? What about Tariq Black? Will Shea Patterson be able to make these young receivers better, or will these young receivers show their youth this year? That to me is the big thing. Another thing that people don't necessarily look at is you had 3 guys last year in this coaching staff: Jim Harbaugh, Pep Hamilton, and Tim DeRevno. You had 3 guys in this kind of offensive room that made the offensive system way too complicated for a college system. It was more like an NFL system, and it showed. 105th in total offense, 91st in scoring offense, and they only had 9 touchdown passes, the fewest in Michigan history since 1975. The fewest since 25 years before I was born, Brandon. My parents weren't even, well, let me think. Were my parents alive back then? I don't know. Maybe they were. Yeah, they were. I'm dumb. My parents were alive back then. But basically, back when my parents were my age was when Michigan had scored its fewest passing touchdowns. That's not the point. The point is, yeah, you've got DeRevno's gone. You've got guys like Jim McElwain coming in, and Hamilton's still there. But what is this offense going to look like? Is it going to be one that Shea Patterson can say, yes, this is my offense, I get it? Can the other guys get it? Can they produce on the field? Because if they can't, then I feel like it'll be the same as last year. It'll be, hey, they beat the teams they were supposed to beat. They played the top 3 teams along with them. They played Wisconsin, couldn't win, and they lost. I think we will see a Michigan team that we saw in year 1, year 2 of Harbaugh, maybe a 10-win team with the ceiling being a 12, 13-win team. Like, I think the ceiling for this team with Shea Patterson is undefeated regular season, Big Ten title win, college football playoff. That is the ceiling for this team. The floor for this team, I'll say 9 wins to be nice, but 9, 10 wins is the floor. So either 9 or 10 wins, 13-0 college football playoffs is the ceiling.
And when you said the stat about them throwing nine passing touchdowns last year, and the last time Michigan did that was in 1975, you are bringing in a guy who's going to be leaps and bounds better than 9 passing touchdowns. A healthy Shea Patterson with his ability and his arm and his, the way that he can read defenses. You've got a very capable quarterback at Michigan for the first time, I think, under Harbaugh. And and I know that Wilton Spate was there, but this is exciting. Wilton Spate was okay, but this is exciting.
I'll take you through them really quick. 2015, their main starter was Jake Rudock. He had 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions that year.
Rudock was good. I forgot about Rudock.
Then the next year, that was the one where John O'Corn came in, transferred from Houston, but it was Wilton Spate's job. He had about 2,500 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And then last year, it was John O'Corn's job with Brandon Peters and Wilton Spates also. And John O'Corn, who was their leading yardsman, 2 touchdowns, 6 INTs on the year, 4 for Peters, 2 for Spate. It was not a good year last year. Shea Patterson needs to be more like that Jake Rudock from 2015.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I forgot about Jake Rudock. I forgot about John O'Corn,
he went to the NFL and has been nothing because I think he got drafted by like the Patriots or the Lions where they don't need a starting quarterback.
And so that's my fault in forgetting about them. But let's say this. To have relevance since 2015, to have, I think, true relevance at the quarterback since 2015. And that's 3 years ago now. So you need to have somebody. And that's a 10-3 team. That was a 10-3 team. And Michigan, if they set themselves up, if they're able to win a couple of these games against the big guns, they could be 1 or 2 in the conference.
Looking at it, Jake Rudock, do you know what NFL team he's on right now?
The Lions.
He's on the Lions still. Do you know how many passing attempts he's had in the NFL?
I think it's 0.
5.
Oh, 5.
He's 3 of 5 with an interception. That's what he is. No touchdowns.
They don't need you. They need my starting quarterback, Matt Stafford,
he's got 24
for fantasy purposes.
He's got 24 passing yards. That's why I've pretty much forgot about Jake Rudock, is because he got drafted by the Lions and basically got shoved behind Matthew Stafford because they don't need him. But before we wrap everything up with the Wolverines, final thoughts on Jim Harbaugh in Michigan in 2018.
I think Jim Harbaugh is going to make a lot of people happy this year because he's not going to be 8-5. He's going to be better than that.
We're not going to have the pitchforks next year. Next year's preview is not going to be pitchforks.
But at the same time, I think he could upset people because I don't know if he'll win the game that they want him to win.
I think that this team could be a undefeated team, Big Ten champion, and a playoff team this year. Do I think that's going to happen? Maybe not right now. You got to prove to me that you can win that game. I think this is going to be back to a 10-win team. They lose to Ohio State. They lose to Penn State. And I wouldn't be surprised if even if this team loses one game all year, wins the title, and he loses to Ohio State, he's on the hot seat next year. Just that's how it's going to be. I feel like this is going to be.
You said sorry to cut you off, but you said that if he loses one game and they still win the title,
meaning
that he would still be on the hot seat if it was the loss to Ohio State. I don't think so. Winning the title can certainly ease the pain of losing to Ohio State. But
I'm being a little over dramatic.
I know, but
okay.
I'm calling you on it.
Yeah.
Because that could ease the pain of losing to Ohio State.
And my point being is that game means a hell of a lot to Michigan fans. That's why I was going to get to, I see them right now maybe being a 10-2 team, losing to Penn State, losing to Ohio State. Michigan fans next year going, I don't care if we went 10-2, you're on the hot seat, we lost to Ohio State. This needs to change now. That is how important that game is going to be this year. This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. How's the Wolverines going to look this year? Will Harbaugh be on the hot seat next year? Will they be a playoff team this year? Because this is probably the first time in a long time that Michigan, well, really we've been talking playoffs with them since Harbaugh got there just because of name alone, but this is the first time I could see them realistically getting to the playoff, although I've been all over Michigan in the years past. Does not matter. Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section.